things that make it more likely to go well if the group has a clear common purpose. If we know why we're here, then even if we disagree, we're more likely to be able to know what we're arguing about. And like, it'll actually, we'll get more groceries delivered if we do it this way. And, or someone's like, we'll reach people who are struggling harder if we do it this way. Like, we know what we believe in and what we're trying to do. And so then we can have a useful learning debate about which things will get us there. It's easier to do consensus decision making when we trust each other. A lot of you mentioned in the fears poll just now the way that conflict can disrupt consensus decision making. So if I just am really mad at Hope and Sophie and we're in a group trying to make decisions this way, and whatever they say, I'm just like, no, like I've lost, I'm no longer speaking to the purpose of our group. I'm just against Hope and Sophie and whatever they say. I could really slow us down. This is why we need to do a lot of work in our groups to actually try to build trust, create good group culture, do feedback together in ways that are useful, and so that we don't have these like pitched conflicts that, where we can choose to try to destroy the group by creating factions or, opposing everything somebody says because we don't like them. That makes decision making fall apart, kind of no matter what decision making structure you have. So I think it's useful to know that trust is not something that is always easy to build. There's good reasons why people don't trust each other. Like, there might be people in your group who don't trust men or who don't trust white people or whatever. Like, there's good reasons that people have adapted to, not trust because of experiences they've had. So I think the question is often, how do I become trustworthy? How do I act in ways in a group that show that I'm listening, that I'm doing what I said I would do, that I admit mistakes? Like, how can we all be trying to become trustworthy? And how do I experiment with ways I might try to be more trusting when it's appropriate? Like, oh, I noticed that I'm, feel really untrusting of everyone in this group. Is there any room for me to play with that? Is there anything that might be influencing me that's deeply about past experiences that am I able to let in new data to about whether people are being trustworthy? And it's not about pressuring us to trust each other. It's about having some self-awareness around our own trusting or lack of trustingness and around our own trustworthiness. Like, we're all on a path to hopefully like do healing that allows us to be more trustworthy and do healing that allows us to trust people when they're trustworthy, and so I think just like, even noticing if you have a tendency there, if you have a tendency to be very trusting, kind of to a fault, or to be untrusting in a way that blocks potential connection and collaboration, that could be useful to you or the group. And just like not judging ourselves for that, but being like, is this a space where I could see any transformation of that? Could I try trusting people who are acting trustworthy? Could I tell a group what makes me feel more trust in a space? Could we have a workshop about building trust? I don't know. There's like, this is really complex, but it will be easier and easier to make decisions together when we've seen each other follow through, listen to each other, actually care about other people's experiences. Like, that's what builds our trust, right? When we've created a culture that makes people feel belonging in the group. This is a tall order. I think, I strongly believe that most of the harm we experience in our lives happens in groups like families and schools and churches and workplaces. And most of the healing that we can experience in our lives happens in groups. Like, groups are a very profound place for healing, where we can have experiences we've never had before, feeling seen, belonging, feeling safe, feeling cared for, feeling like someone has our back. And so we want to build groups where people can experience that kind of healing. So how do I show up to a group that could be a place like that for me and others? Like, these are like deep questions that relate to this. Consensus decision making works better when people understand the process. And most people have never been in spaces that were not dominated by an authority. So we do need to make sure, especially with new people in our group, that we keep talking about how the consensus process works. And good facilitators will remind people how we're making this decision and what some of our values are about that every time we are making a decision together, so that new people can join and so that all of us can remember. If I came in here with a big grudge against Hope and Sophie, maybe reminding me what the purpose of the group is and how we make decisions together might help me not play that out when we go into this discussion of Hope and Sophie's proposal. It might help me keep the best interests of the group at the center, which is what allows consensus decision making to work well. And it can be really hard when instead I'm focused on my grudge. This is huge. I'm going to talk about this in a moment in the facilitation section, but in many groups, people just show up to meetings. No one's done any work in between to prepare or think about what the meeting will be like, or to give people something to think, like, here, I'm sending out this proposal for people to chew on before the meeting, and maybe even send me back thoughts if you have suggestions before the meeting. And then when we have the conversation, we've all already chewed on it a bit. Like, doing things between meetings to prepare for meetings makes the time be used much better and can make people feel a lot more satisfaction in the consensus process. And so we really need skillful facilitation and agenda preparation. And I'm going to talk about facilitation a bit here and also give you guys a bunch of resources. Facilitation is a really huge skill that we need, like, everyone to be learning, and it's a lifelong skill. And there's lots of great writing and videos and stuff about it. But we really need everyone in our groups to be learning this. And facilitation is so vital during crises and disasters, when it's time for groups of people to make hard decisions together and to share resources in the face of scarcity and danger. So the more we have this skill, the more prepared we are for the coming disasters.